Senator Klobuchar, Senator Cornyn.
Director Wray, let me start with some basic concepts. If you walk into the Supreme Court of the United States, over the arches in the entryway, there are inscribed the words "equal justice under law." I think there's a perception, unfortunately, that we are not living up to that ideal in a number of respects. Senator Whitehouse mentioned the shameful treatment of Hillary Clinton, somebody who I do not support from a political standpoint, but who was subjected to the release of derogatory information of an investigation that Director Comey and the FBI conducted involving her, and the fact that he usurped the authority of the Attorney General when it comes to charging decisions and made the statement he did. I think there's also a perception that President Trump was not treated fairly during his time of office, particularly because of the opposition research, things like the Steele dossier, the Russiagate investigation, all of which ended up in basically amounting to no charges being filed. I want to just say, personally, I appreciate your willingness to take on the important task of restoring and rebuilding the reputation of the FBI. I believe the FBI is an indispensable institution in our government, but it's also a big, unwieldy institution. I think you have about 35,000 people who work at the FBI, somewhere like that, right?
It's actually closer to 38,000.
38,000. And I'm personally convinced that overwhelmingly these are good, patriotic, hardworking people sacrificing, putting themselves in harm's way in order to protect the rest of America. But like any other large organization, there are going to be some bad apples, people who abuse trust and who misbehave. Can you just take a minute and describe what steps that you have undertaken at the FBI to try to restore the FBI's reputation as an institution that the American people can trust to pursue equal justice under the law?
Well, I appreciate the question. Let me start with a statement of principle that I hold near and dear, and then explain a little bit more concretely what that means. My message from day one, and probably said every day since I've been in the job, is that we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing in the right way in everything we do. And that means the importance of process and following our rules. That does not mean, and sometimes this is frustrating to people of all shapes and stripes, that does not mean we can guarantee the result or the outcome that somebody would like in a case. So how do I implement that principle? I have directed all sorts of changes in the relation to the Crossfire Hurricane matter, for example. In that one matter alone, I directed over 40 corrective measures, went above and beyond anything the Inspector General recommended, and have implemented dozens of changes since then. You mentioned the Hillary Clinton email matter. There too, I accepted every recommendation by the Inspector General, then went above and beyond. In terms of personnel, I've installed an entirely new leadership team from when I started. As far as accountability, which is a topic that, of course, is important to a lot of people, within the tools that we have available to us and the circumstances that are available to us, I have taken action. What can I do? I can, in the right circumstances, remove somebody from the chain of command, and I have. I can, when the circumstances support it, have somebody's security clearance revoked, and I have. I can, when the circumstances warrant it, refer somebody to the Inspector General or the Hatch Act Office of Special Counsel or others like that, and I have. What I can't do is prosecute people, and that gets to the heart of what you referenced at the very beginning in terms of my predecessor's handling of the Hillary Clinton matter. I'm very sensitive to the fact that part of the reason I'm in this job is because of the distinction between the FBI director's role and a prosecutor's role. And a lot of the criticism that the FBI has endured over the last few years has, if you look closely, revolved around frustrations about whether this person was prosecuted or not and what they were prosecuted for. And that ultimately is not the FBI director's or the FBI's choice.
If I can ask you about 702, there's already been some discussion about that. I've referred to Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act as perhaps one of the most important laws that the American people have never heard of. And I know we have talked a lot about it, but there is a concern that the tools, including FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act 702, can be abused, and that it can be used to target U.S. citizens. Let me just ask you directly, is it possible to lawfully target an American citizen under Section 702?
Well, I think so-called reverse targeting, targeting of Americans through the end run of 702 is expressly prohibited.
That's my understanding of the law as well. As a matter of fact, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act is exactly that. It targets foreigners, correct? Outside of the United States.
Yes.
But if a would-be terrorist calls an American citizen in the United States, then you necessarily will know who's on both ends of that conversation, correct?
Well, whether it's telephony or even just electronic communication, but which is more often where we see it.
It can be an email, it can be a text, it can
Correct.
be
Correct.
And then if, for example, you want to investigate that American citizen, isn't it true that you have to go to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and demonstrate probable cause to conduct a further investigation of that American citizen as a target?
Yes, at that point, then that's, of course, the route that we pursue, which is part of why, to your comment at the beginning about how little people have heard of 702, is because unlike the warrant stage, when you're actually pursuing somebody for prosecution, for example, 702 is most used and most useful at the stage when you're at the very beginning trying to figure out what the heck do we have here? What direction does this need to go? Is this something we need to pursue? And so that's why people, including prosecutors, don't even hear about it that much, because when it's most useful to protect Americans from threats.
I think you've called it the crown jewels, or perhaps words to that effect. How would you describe the importance of Section 702, and what would be the consequences of willfully blinding ourselves to the threats of foreign actors?
I think blinding ourselves through either allowing 702 to lapse or amending it in a way that guts its effectiveness would be reckless at best and dangerous and irresponsible at worst. The reality is the whole reason we have 702 focused on foreign threats from overseas is to protect America from those threats. It's not to admire foreign threats from afar and study them and think about them. It's to know what they are and to make sure they don't hurt Americans here. American businesses targeted with cyber attacks, American victims targeted for assassination or terrorist attacks. That's why we have it. The FBI's piece of 702, we are the only intelligence agency with the authority to operate domestically. And so where the rubber really meets the road, even though our slice of 702 as a percentage is quite narrow, that narrow slice in some ways is the most important slice, because that's what protects people here that all of us are sworn to protect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Cornyn. Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Durbin. Thank you, Director Wray.